Right, hello guys. Welcome to welcome to another lesson. Obviously, last lesson was a bit complicated, really. I think a lot of I ended up going a little bit overboard, I think, and I think I ended up confusing a lot of you. So this lesson, I'm trying to reduce the amount of confusion here. So let me just show you just to go over what we did last lesson really quickly. I tried to make a little calculator, and I was literally just sitting here chatting to you about and literally just doing the code. And some of that code might have been a bit over your head. And after that lesson, I kind of spent a bit of time trying to do it myself and trying to finish it off, but actually it was far more complicated than necessary. So at the moment I am putting this to one side, but the main thing that I wanted to make sure you knew, okay, was this kind of bit here where it checked the different symbols and then it did the add and minus and divide and multiply, and then it returned those values. Okay, that's the main idea I wanted to get from you there. So a couple of things so when we were doing this in Thonny, if you open it in Thonny, you get all of the code, which is lovely, but you don't get what I would like to be able to talk you through and being able to minimize bits of code that you don't currently want to be looking at. So this is still that code that we were just looking at, just looks slightly different in that it's colored in a different way, etc., etc. But it's still the same code. What I'd like to do today is talk about the different subroutines and the different ideas behind those. So I've got a few different things I want to talk through. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was this print. Now, usually you're very used to going, let's open up a random thing. You're quite used to going print, oops, print hello world, right? Yeah, you've done that however many times. You might have put whatever else in between, but you've used this print statement hundreds of times probably by now because we've been using them in our lessons, and that's the idea behind them. And you know what that does, but you don't know the ins and outs of that print statement. What actually happens when you do print? This is the code behind that word print, yeah? And you've got these brackets and you've got these args, which are your arguments, right? Which in this case would be your, sorry, I've moved it. So in this case would be the string hello world. You might have kwargs, which might be things like sep equals nothing. So you don't want it to go onto a new line, or you do want it to go onto a new line, or that kind of thing. Okay, that would be your kwargs. Now, you know how that works. But if I was to click on this, and this is all the code for it. Now, I don't understand this code. I'm not expecting you to. But you can see, just by looking at the idea here, the idea that I'm trying to get to you here is that this word print, this function, does something, and just to print something out to the screen, okay? It doesn't expect you to understand exactly how that works. It just does it, okay? So with that in mind, I wanted to talk about the idea of using menus in Python, okay? This is a very basic menu. I've added this time import sleep in there because when I was going through it, it was a little bit too slow, a little bit too fast, sorry, when I ran it. So I'm going to run it. If I go here, run. Oh, in fact, I've already saved it somewhere else, so oops, don't want that. No, come back. Let's open up this, and I've called this menu example. So if I double click that, no, I don't want to double click it. I want to open with Python. Oh, it's started to rain. So it's asking me, what would you like to do? I'm going to zoom in a little bit. What would you like to do? Option 1, one, option A, 2, option B. 1, this is where I do option A. Then it waited a second. What would you like to do? 1, option A, 2, option B. 2, this is where I do option B. And it keeps asking that because I put in this while true. Okay. So I've got menu. What all this is doing is calling the menu forever and ever, and then and waiting 1 second between each time. And all I need to know is that this creates a menu. That's all I need to know. But then, if I was to look into the menu section, I would go, oh, well, it's printing out each line. And we're asking the user for an input. And if their answer is 1, then it goes to option A. Don't need to know what option A does necessarily at this point, but it does option A. If answer is 2, it goes to option B. And it carries on from there. Obviously, if you had more options, that would give you more options. Now, option A and option B, you could do whatever you want in there. You don't have to print, this is where I do option A. You could do something more interesting than that. But this is the main idea behind a menu system, which is, if you get nothing else from this lesson, I want you to try and understand how to do a menu system for your programming project, because this is going to make your life so much simpler. Okay. Now, I wanted to show you a slightly more complicated program, which could be given in, I would say it's on the same kind of level as the programming projects are. Apart from it, you probably want to be asking for something a bit more complicated than this, a little bit more complicated. Now, what I've done in this is I have made it so that it is written in the way that a professional would write this. Now, you can see I've got these 3 speech marks, and then I've got another 3 speech marks. This is actually what we call doc code. This means that if someone were to take this Python file, and there's some certain things you can do to it which will create documents for your file, or create Python documents, you know, like the let's see if I can find it. Had it up a minute ago. No, let's see. Yeah, so go back a moment. So yeah, when we remember this documentation thing here, if you go into, let's see, all versions. Oh, that was not the place I wanted to go. API, that's the one I wanted. Okay, so let's find something like so things like this, where it explains to you what that piece of code does. I know this is more complicated than what I'm talking about, but this kind of stuff here can be automatically created by Python if you use this kind of three speech marks bit with some information between it. So, oh, I've lost. There we are. So, the idea. So I've got at the top here, this is a simple text adventure game. This explains what this program does. And it tells me who the author is, me, last updated, today's date, because that's the last time I updated it. I've spent a couple of hours on this morning, and from scratch I started this morning. So so without looking at what's going on in these functions, I just want you to look at this bit for a moment, where it says places equals get places. So, okay, what does that do? Okay, that's the first thing I want to know. Creates the 2D list of places from the CSV file. So what I've done is I have, in the same folder as this simple text game, I have places.csv, which is a really simple explanation of, so this is a bit like a text adventure game. So if you're in the road, if you go north, you'll get to the main gate, and if you go west, you get to the guards barracks, etc., etc. You can't go this way because there's no way to go there, but you can go that way, etc. So I have created this CSV file. All I've done is created it in Microsoft Excel and gone to File, Save As, and then saved it as a CSV, comma, separated values. Okay. So I'm going to cancel that because I've already saved it. So all that's done is saved it in a way that Python can read it. So when I open it in a text editor, it actually gives me what it looks like. So this is the exact same file that I was just looking at, that CSV file. But instead of in Excel, where it's got all the cells for me, it's separating each item by a comma. So I've got comma because there's nothing in that top corner. In fact, if I open up the CSV file at the same time, you'll see what I'm talking about. So you can see this top corner doesn't have anything in it, so it's left an empty string and then comma. Then it's secret room, comma, nothing, nothing, nothing. Okay, you can see that there's nothing in between this. There's not even a space. Okay, then nothing, comma, bedroom, comma, escape tunnel. Yeah, you can see that each of this is the same information here, is just explained in a slightly different way. Okay. Now what I've done is I've got a 2D list. Now we might go into more detail about 2D lists later, but all I've done is opened my text file. I've read my text file. Read lines. Remember that gives me a list of items. So what it does is gives me a list with this as the first item, this is the second item, this is the third item, this is the fourth item, etc. Okay. And then it says for line in file content, row becomes line.split. So I'm splitting my row, which is a full row here, by when there's a comma, which is these commas here. So if there's nothing in there, then it will just save it as nothing. Okay. And then places.append row. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a list, a 2D list, which has a load of places in it. So when I split, that create row is just creating a new list. So what I'm actually doing is creating lists inside lists. And all it's doing is returning places. Now, if you didn't understand that, that's fine, because all you have to do is go, okay, I didn't write this bit of code, but I can still use it. I can go, right, I need a 2D list of places, so I'm going to use it here. Places becomes get places. Okay, current X is 2, current Y is 5. Now that's because if I start from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that would be my Y coordinate, and 0, 1, 2, that's my X coordinate. I want to start at the road, okay? And then it says, while true, describe and use input. Oh, that's what I was going to do. I was going to just quickly play this game for you. So, simple text game. Where's it gone? Hasn't turned up. Ah, here it is. So, I'm just going to close that one. Why isn't it opening? Ah, is it because it's on funny still? Let's open with Python. This was working earlier, so I don't know why it's stopped working, unless it's in the background somewhere. Nope. I suppose the worst case scenario, I can open it up in idle or Thonny or wherever, and run it from there. So where's it gone? Here it is. So simple text game, open with. If I try open with Python again, didn't seem to do anything. So unless I've done something here that stopped it from being able to run, let me edit with Thonny for a minute. So I've got it here. And if I run it, that's one of the issues. I must have accidentally I haven't tested the code since I've added all these oh, it's not letting me type. Just check something. Yes, let me type there. Yeah. Let me just check. There we go. So, oops. Let's just make sure everything's been put into the right place, because it looks like one of the issues here is that it doesn't know where it's going. So let's run it again. There we go. So that's why it wasn't working earlier. So if I run this, open with Python. Oh, still didn't work. It worked on here, so I'm not sure why it wasn't working on there. Sorry, guys. So you can see here at the bottom, let's just go from this. Says, you are currently at the road. You see a main gate to the north. Which way would you like to go? And if I say north, it will let me go north. You are currently at the main gate. You see a great hall to the north. You see a yard to the east. You see a road to the south. You see a guard's barracks to the west. And you can see, if we look at this, oops, let's make it a little bit smaller. So if I was at the road at the beginning, my main gate is to the north, and then there was nothing around me otherwise, wasn't there? And then Great Hall to the north, which is correct, yard to the east, road to the south, guards barracks to the west. So that's what we've got here, main gate. And obviously if I carried on going, it should let me move to different places. So north, okay, you're currently at the main hall. Okay, you're currently at the main hall. Great Hall, sorry. You see a throne room to the north. You see a kitchen to the east. You see main gate to the south. And obviously there's nothing in this box, so it doesn't give me that option. Now, okay, you're wondering, how did I do this? So I was in the process of going through how I managed to do this. So, yes. So let me minimize some of these so you don't have to look at all of them. So I've already described how the get places works, and I've already described how the different parts work. So current x is 2, current y is 5. That puts me at the road at the beginning. And then while true, which means forever, I'm going to describe and then user input. So let's have a look at describe. It says prints out a description of the current location and what is around you. Okay, that is the description of this particular this function here. Okay, it says print, you are currently at the get room, current x, current y. Okay, so print get room, current x, current y. That's another function that we've created down here. Okay, but we're going to leave that for a minute. We're going to have a look and see what that is. But you can get an idea that get room, current x, current y explains what the room is, where the room, what room you're in, or what area you're in anyway. Then it's going to say for direction in north, east, south, west. So basically it's creating a loop here. It's going, okay, check north. Can I go north? If I can, so I can, if I can go north. Okay. Now again, this is another function that I'm using, but you can see that this is reducing the amount of effort that I have to put in by saying I can go. If I can go, blah, 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 then it goes that direction. Now, I don't need to know what I can go, how I can go works. I just need to know how to use it. So I can go in a certain direction, and that if that works, then I can go in that direction. So when I say I can go, I mean, obviously from the road you can't go south or east or west, but you can go north. Okay. And it prints out UCA and then space and then get direction. So what it's actually doing there, get, is getting the room at a given direction. Now I couldn't call it get room because get room has already been used. So get direction, okay, to the direction. So you see a particular room to the north, south, east, west, whatever it is. And then it asks which way would you like to go, okay? So if you get rid of all of that, or not necessarily not actually pressing delete on the keyboard, but if you were to ignore all of this, is what I mean, and just go, okay, describe, prints out a description of the current location and what is around you. That's all I needed to know, correct? Okay, then in user input, it finds out where the user wants to go and goes in that direction if possible. So it says answer equals input, and then I've put a little arrow so that it tells you which direction. It makes it clear that you've got to type now as the user. And again, if I can go, and I'm using this I can go here, if I can go, and then I've put answer dot capitalize, and dot capitalize just means make sure that the first letter is capitalized so that all of the text is the correct type. Then go in that direction. Okay, so if the user has typed in north, then if I can go north, then go north. Okay, and again, you don't need to know how I go north. You just use that go north. Done. Easy. Okay. If I can't go north, if I can go otherwise, it'll print out you can't go that way. Okay. So that's user input. Now there's a couple of functions that we're using here that, as I've mentioned before, we know how they work, that we know how to use them, but we don't necessarily know how they work. But already you can see that this is get room. I don't need to know how I got the room as long as that function has already been written. So sometimes you might want to use functions like this without really knowing how they work. This is how a lot of companies do it nowadays. So one person might write the go function or the get room function or whatever, and then someone else might write a different part of the program. Later, I might decide to give you this piece of code, and then you can add to it. You can add your own functions to do some extra bits. So maybe you encounter a particular monster in that room, or you get to pick up certain things in that room. Okay. User input, we've already gone through. I can go. Now I've called it I can go because we've got this if I can go. It makes it feel a little bit nicer. Now what's happening here, the reason I've called it I can go is because it's returning a Boolean value. Now we've got these extra bits written here that we didn't have in the last couple of things. This checks to see if the user can go in the given direction. Okay, that's all it does. I can go direction. Now args means arguments, direction. So this is describing this word here, this variable. Direction is a string value of either north, south, east, or west, hopefully. Okay. If it's not a value that we know of, then it doesn't like that. And it returns a Boolean value for determining whether I can go in that given direction. So it gives me either yes or no, true or false. Now I've got this try except. Now I tried to do it as just just return get direction, not in it. So what this does, where it says get direction, I probably could make this a little bit more easy for you to read by saying if get direction not equal to and get direction not equal to \n. So obviously if you're on the end of a line, so let's say you're over here in the servants' quarters, this isn't a section, it's actually \n at the end of that line, isn't it? If it's not nothing and it's not \n, then I'm going to return true. Okay. Otherwise, I will return false. Oops. I'm just going to put that in like that. Now all of this text here is exactly the same as if I was to write this. Okay. I've got get direction is not equal to nothing, and get direction is not equal to new line. If it is equal to nothing, or if it is equal to \n or new line, then it's going to return false. Okay. Now get direction, it might go, well, I can't go in that direction anymore. So if I was, say, on the road and I was trying to look down, there isn't anything in that direction. So it would have an index error. It would go, you're trying to look in a place that, so you're trying to look in index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which doesn't exist. So there would be an index error. Okay. And so that would also return false. Now I can get rid of these because that does exactly the same as this. Okay, so all this does is returns whether I can go in a given direction. Okay, and again, once I know that I've written that, I don't have to worry about it anymore. I can minimize it, I can use it somewhere else, I can go, okay, I can go in a given direction. Can I go in that direction, yes or no? Okay. Now get direction. So get's the name of a room in a given direction. Sometimes I might go, okay, oh hang on, I've forgotten what get does. Let me have a look. So I'll go get, okay, get's the name of a room in a given direction. Oh, okay, that's all it does. And I might go, okay, what do I need to type into this bit here? Oh, I need to type in a string value of either north, south, east, or west. Okay, and it will send me back the name of the room, or the whatever's in that room. So main gate, for example. Okay, it says x equals get x direction. So, and y is get y of a given direction. Again, you don't need to know how these work yet, but you know that I've created a function called getX and getY to allow me to go in a certain direction. And then it will return getRoom XY. So you can tell just by looking at this, hopefully, that getRoom XY will go, okay, what room is at this given coordinate? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Yeah, 4, 1, or 1, 4. I can't remember which way around it is. Okay, so that gets a certain direction. Now get x will return the x coordinate for a given direction. So direction, string value of either north, south, east, or west, and it returns the x coordinate for a given direction. Now, in this, x only changes when you're going east or west, doesn't it? So you've got x and y, bottoms up or down the corridor, up the stairs. Yeah, right. On the corridor up the stairs. Yeah. If direction is equal to east, then it's going to go up because we want it to go. So north, east, south, west. So if we're at the main gate, if we're going east, then we'll be increasing the value. So 0, 1, 2, 3 instead of 2. Yeah, we're increasing our current direction, current x value. If we're going west, we're decreasing our current value because we're going from the main gate this way, 0, 1, 2. Okay, this is 2, but this one is going to be 1. Okay. Otherwise, it's going to be the same because if I'm not going east or west, then I'll be going north or south, and I don't need to change my x value. So I'll just return whatever the current value is. Okay. Then get y, same idea again, returns the y coordinate for a given direction. Direction, string value of either north, south, east, or west. Y only changes when you're going north, south. So if I want to go to the Great Hall, then that would be increasing it by 1. So that's when my direction is north, returning, decreasing it by 1 because I start at 0 at the top, don't I? 0, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So I decrease it by 1 if I'm going north, and I increase it by 1 if I'm going south. And otherwise, if I'm going east or west, I'm not changing my y value, so that can stay the same. Okay, so minimizing that. Then I've got get room xy. This gets the name of a room given its coordinates. Gives x is the x coordinate of the room and y is the y coordinate of the room. And it returns the name of the room. Okay. Now I've got these a little bit backwards, which it needs to be backwards because of the way that the 2D list has been set up. Unfortunately, I couldn't work out how to get it set up a different way round. Now that could be something that I had to work out somehow. But if I just look at get room on its own, it gets the name of a room given its coordinates. So it gets whatever is written in these sections here, given whatever XY coordinates we've got. Okay? And that all it's doing is looking at the 2D list that I've created and returning whatever's written in there. Okay? And then the final item, go, it will set the current XY values to the position in a given direction. And the arguments here are direction, which are string values of either north, south, east, or west, like we've used before. And what I've actually had to do here is use this keyword called global. That's because I want to be able to change these values. If you're trying to change some values inside a function, they won't change outside the function unless you tell the function that that variable is global. Okay? Because what happens in a function stays in that function. A bit like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Yeah. Global just tells it that actually this is something that does need to change. It's changing something outside of Vegas or outside of that function. Okay. And all it's doing is current x is finding that x direction or x coordinate of a given direction, and current y is set to getting the y coordinates of a given direction. So it's just changing those two values so that now, instead of sitting at the road at coordinates 0, 1, 2 by 0, 1, 2, 3, so 2 by 5, it's at the main gate, which is at 2 by 4. Yeah. Now, again, if you didn't understand certain parts of this, you can still use them. A bit like I've explained earlier with the print statement, you don't understand how any of this works, but you can still use it. You can still use a print statement. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to just want to have a look at some of these. Yeah. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this into a trinket so that you can have a play around with it. I will try and get that CSV file in there as well. And so you can have a play around with it. You can edit it if you want to. You can add in extra bits where, if you want to, you can try and create extra ideas for this game, add to this game, so it's a bit more interesting. Now, you might also, if you find that that's going to be too difficult, then the thing I would like you to do this lesson is to create your own menu system for anything you want. Option A, I don't know, option A can be adding some numbers together. Option B can be asking someone what their name is and then printing it backwards or something like that. And different things. They'll all do something slightly different. They'll all do something probably very different from one another. And you're going to have this menu system in there. Okay. Now, one of the things I wanted to show you was last year's programming project. Show you the code for last year's programming project. Now, this is the code that I wrote for last year's programming project. Now, if you remember about run length encoding and about ASCII files, let me just open this in, not that one. If I open this in Thonny. You make this a bit smaller because it's massive. So I run this in Thonny. I've got please choose a number from the following options: enter RLE, display ASCII art, convert to ASCII art, convert to RLE, quit. Okay, this is my version of last year's programming project. Okay, the one that technically wouldn't be being submitted this year, unfortunately. It would have been submitted this year, but because of the system that has happened, it can't actually submit that this year. So if I go to enter RLE, then how many lines of RLE compressed data do you want to enter? Let's say 2, because I don't want to spend ages typing it in. So please enter line number 1. I have to enter it in a certain format. So 2, I want 2 stars, then 4 exclamation marks, then 8. Oops, almost forgot my 0. 8 pluses. And then line number 2, I have 4 of those, 2 speech marks, and 8 H's. Okay. And then, oh, it did it very quickly, but you can see that, oh, I managed to do 2, 4, and 8 both times. But you can see I've got my ASCII art. It's not very interesting, but it's a piece of ASCII art. Then it asks us to display some ASCII art. So number 2, please enter the name of the ASCII art text file. Now, if I go into here, I can go, let's see, frog. Call it frog. Oops. And ooh. So I've got, oh, it's not very well displayed on here because of the, I'll probably let me do the emoji one instead. 2 emoji. Oh, have I not got, no, because I haven't created that one yet. So let me do logo art instead. Logo art. And again, scroll back up. Oh, let me zoom back out a little bit because otherwise you can't see this properly. So AQA logo art with some numbers, letters, and symbols in there. And this one, if I had zoomed out, it would have worked with this frog. Got a nice little frog. Got a frog. And ASCII, my AQA thing. So that was that one, and then convert to ASCII art, number 3. So enter. Also earlier I had emoji RLE. Okay. So now if I zoom back out again, you'll see emoji. Okay, I created a ASCII art with an emoji, and then so actually, sorry, I didn't make that really clear here, did I? So did it create the, no it didn't. So emoji rle.txt looks like this, which is absolutely nothing like that that emoji file. All it's doing is saying I want 4 spaces, then 66 dots, then 1 space, then 7 dots, then 1 space, then 1 dot, etc. And if you look at the first line, I've got 4 spaces, then that many dots, you see? So then did the convert one already, and then convert to RLE. Let's do that one. Enter the name of a text file, which is an ASCII art one. So if I open up, yeah, let's open up frog.txt again. Yeah, frog, and then ASCII art has 2,163 characters. RLE encoded version has 1,587 characters. You have saved 576 characters. And then what it's actually done is created for me that frog rle.txt. And although that was already there, so that wasn't very clear. So if I do it again, I delete that and run it again, convert to RLE, frog. Same idea again, but if I go back in, then it's got frog rle.txt in there. Okay, so I did all of that using all of these lines of code. I've got 121 lines, some of which are blank spaces, but generally this was all of my code. Now let me open it back up in here, because then you can read it a lot easier. We've got our menu, which prints out the different items, asks the user, like, over and over again if they've not typed in the correct value. If they've typed in a value that's not 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, then it will ask again. And then if the choice is 1, it will go to the enter RLE. Okay, and then if the choice is 2, it will go to display ASCII, which it does here. Okay, now that looks very small, doesn't it? But actually, what it's doing is just displaying what's in a text file. Okay, and I've put that in a different function as well, get text file, because I don't need all of that. I can reuse this piece of text here. Okay, and then we've got convert to ASCII and convert to RLE, and if I put the choice was 5, then press enter to close the program, and then I use this sys.exit, which allows me to leave the program. If I had actually finished and gone to 5, then it says press enter to close the program, and you can see it's stopped the program there. Okay, so it asks for that menu over and over again, and it does all of those different things. You don't need to know right now how I did enter RLE or how I did display ASCII, but you can. It makes it much easier for you to be able to read different parts of the program, because then you go, okay, this is a section which allows me to enter the RLE. This is a section that allows me to compress some data. This allows me to decompress a list of data. This allows me to display the ASCII value of the data, etc. And I thought it would be interesting to see what would happen if I had not used subroutines for this. Now, this one is 121 lines of code. This one is, if I make this bigger, 112. Now, technically, you can see that it's shorter, technically, but I do also have a lot fewer lines of white space, because on this I spread out, I've got these lines of white space in between, which still count as a line, obviously. So those extra bits of white space aren't really in this, which is why we've got so many extra lines in this one. Okay. Now, if you were to read through this, you would go, hang on a second, I can't work out where we're at. I don't know what's going on. There's so many lines of code. And even if in here I go, okay, well, if choice is 1, I'll minimize that, choice is 2, etc., right? And go, okay, I only look at a bit at a time. Okay, if choice is 1, I've got all of this information, and some of the bits are, because I'm having to go inside if statements, some of these indents become so large that I have to scroll along a lot more than I would otherwise. So if I'm looking at, this is enter RLE, isn't it? So if I go to enter RLE on this one, it's not quite as far across. All I did was copy over the information. It works the exact same way, and then you can see here that I've got display ASCII, decompressed data, and I had to go in and adjust some of this information. So instead of having display ASCII, blah, 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 I had to kind of go in and write in all of these different bits. It just makes it so much cleaner to look at when you've got your functions. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. What I'm going to do is send you a copy of this and a copy. Do I want to send you a copy of this? In fact, there was one other thing I wanted to show you really quickly. Bank account. Okay, so this is a bank account idea. So again, I've got get balance, deposit, withdraw, print statement, and set overdraft. Okay, and get overdraft. At the beginning of the program, I will ask what their starting balance is and convert that into a float, as in a floating point number, and I'll set my overdraft limit to 0. And then while true, I'll go into the menu, and like we've done with all the other ones. Now, I haven't written the code for the menu. I want you to do that. Okay, so three different things that you could do from this lesson. First thing is to edit this piece of code, and you don't need to know what's in all of these, but you might want to have a peek and go, oh, okay, that's what that does. Oh, okay, that's what that does. That's fairly straightforward. But instead of, I mean, some of these are only 1 line long. So you might think, oh, well, what's the point? But actually, it just makes it that much easier from your perspective to go, okay, withdraw a given amount. I want you to type in the code so that this program works. At the moment, this program does not work. Okay? So I want you to get that to work. So that's the first thing I want you to do. If you've managed to do that, then I want you to try and create a menu system, okay, of your own, where you have an option A, option B. You, instead of calling these option A and option B, call it whatever it's actually doing. So if it's adding a number, you might want to write the word add. If it's doing something else, you write the word, whatever it is it's doing. So usually these are verbs here. And as you might have noticed when this here, I can go, that's a question, or not quite a question, it's a statement. It's saying I can go in a certain direction, because a Boolean value is a statement, isn't it? And then get places, that will give you a certain thing. It will return a list of places. Get X, get Y, that returns values. So hopefully you've that kind of idea, the way to describe your function names will help here. The idea of that will help. So first thing I want you to do, edit this menu. Second thing I want you to do, create your own program that you're going to have to be a bit creative here, that does some different things depending on what the options are. Okay. And the third thing, if you want a bit of a challenge, is to have a look at my program and put on there, edit that program so that it can do something a bit extra. You might want to add an inventory, for example. You might want to add the idea of having to fight something. You might even just want to explain those different rooms in a bit more detail. Okay, so whatever it is, I will put all of those different things. So item 1, item 2, item 3. So creating a menu, creating your own menu system, whatever that system would be, and adding to my text adventure game. Okay, 3 different tasks. I'm going to give you until next week to get those done. Have a lovely week. I will send you these via Show My Homework straight after this lesson, but just give me a moment to do that first. All right, guys, have a lovely week. Bye.